Cincinnati and Hamilton County. I am interviewing John Breckenridge on July 8, 2008 at the main library. Our camera operator today is Dennis Daly. Mr. Breckenridge, how are you today?
Oh, I'm very fine.
What I'd like to do is to start back with your days before you went into the military. Sort of what were you doing when the war broke out, and what led you to join the military?
Well, let me start off by saying when I was 14, I was, I guess, I'm trying to think if this is correct, a Civil Air Patrol Auxiliary. You remember those?
Yes.
And we went around to the airport, we cleaned up the airports, you know. And then when I was 15, that was 1946. When I was 15, I joined the Army Air Force Reserve. We were not quite regular in the Army Air Force Reserve, but a little age to it, doing the same kind of things we did for the Civil Air Patrol. And then at 17, I went into the Army Reserves. Well, no sooner were we in the Army Reserves, bam, Korean War starts. So we served a year in Korea. And then I went as a reservist, 1950 to 1951. And then from 1952 to 1955, I was in the regular Army.
So you were in the reserves first?
In the reserves first.
But was sent to Korea?
Yes.
And then immediately thereafter, without any real break, went into the regular Army?
I went into the regular Army in 1952, almost a year after. And I served in Korea until it would be November, October, towards the end of October, 1st November of 1952. And then I was evacuated to the United States.
So you really didn't have a basic training as such?
We had the basic training that reservists get. But, and then when the war started, they gave you a fresher course, but not 8 weeks or 16 weeks. No, they figured if you're a reservist that had over a year, you knew the rudiments, fundamentals, and they gave you the same kind of refresher course they gave the older soldiers who had been in the Second World War. They were in the reserves, and that's basically what it was.
That's basically what you had as preparation.
Right, very much so.
You had graduated from high school?
I graduated from high school when I was 16 years old. I just went to, my father taught me to read when I was 4 years old, so I entered school at 5. I just went to school every 12 months out of the year. You know, my dad just kept me in summer school, and so I advanced. I came out 2 years early.
And so then when you went to Korea the first time, and that was really at the time that of the outbreak of the
Yeah, I
war.
just turned 17 the previous October, and we were sent to Korea in June of 50. I turned 17 in October 1949, in June of 1950. We were sent to, we had our training, and I think the Korean War started the first part of June, and we were activated, and we took our training at a place outside of Pittsburgh. I can't think. Indiantown Gap. That's where we took our training at, and by the end of June, bam, we were there.
So at 17,
17.
You were in Korea.
Yes, yes. But I wasn't the only one, though.
There were quite a few, yes.
There were quite a few of us. We even had a 13-year-old in there.
A 13-year-old?
13-year-old.
That put his age up or something?
Put his age up, and then when we found out, the Red Cross, but we didn't find out until about October 1950, the Red Cross yanked him out of there pronto.
What kind of unit were you in?
I'm going to talk about it vaguely, because even today I don't talk about it. We were, after we got to Korea, we were infantry unit, but some of us got more training in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us who got the training were people who had finished high school and some who had college. And we were a special unit. We did the dirty work that all armies have units do.
Mm-hmm.
That's about, I don't want to go into too much detail because to be very honest about it, even now, it's classified.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now, this was while you were a reservist.
this is while I was a reservist.
Mm-hmm.
This is while I was a reservist. There are some units, and even today, there are units in the Army, and I'm not talking about the ones you hear about, the Special Forces people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the ones you don't hear about, who do dirty work that the military requires.
Mm-hmm.
I guess today, they call these people wet boys. You may have heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but back then we were new. And the gentleman who trained this unit had studied military operations all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he refused a command, a general star, so he could stay in control of this unit.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed a full colonel until he retired. So I don't talk about this much.
Can you tell how you were selected?
I was selected because they told me, because I want, this guy, first time I met him, he said, "Who's Breckenridge?" And I put my hand up. He said, "My God, you got a higher IQ than I do. That's why I picked you." And he picked people on how intelligent they were.
So you were trained, you were tested by the military while you were in the reserves.
In the reserves, they always test you, yes, yes. But
So based on that test,
based on that test and based on how you were as a soldier, in the reserves, but merely how you showed on your aptitude test coming in, because they look for certain things. Let me say, I got discharged in 1955, and that was my honorable discharge. But I was, what's the word I want to use? I guess on call is the best thing I can say to the United States government till 1965.
which is a longer than usual period.
Longer than usual period. And even during that time that I was civilian, I did things that I cannot talk about. People would call me up and say, be such and such a place at such and such a time. And I would be there, and guys would come by and say one word, and I said another, and I get in the car with people I never knew, would never saw again.
What kind of rank did you have when you were in the Army?
My nominal rank was a corporal. That's what I was discharged at. But sometimes during my duty, I would hold the rank of as master sergeant. Whatever the duty's called, that's the rank that they gave me.
And in terms of the unit that you were assigned to, were you assigned to a particular unit, or how did this clandestine
Well, here's how they did it then. I don't know how they do it now. They would assign you to a unit, but within that unit, there was someone that was your contact person. Now, the people within the unit didn't know who you were, but there was a contact person in the unit, and whatever assignment came up, you were given a furlough. And that's it. And we were in different units close by, but we were not all bunched together.
Right.
And each guy in that unit had someone in the unit who was a contact person.
So you were, in one sense, dispersed.
Yes,
yes. As sort of as a part of your cover, really.
Yeah, that was part of the cover. You're a regular soldier, yes.
But then you would be pulled out for special missions.
Whenever special missions came, they would pull you out. And the people there didn't know what was happening. Like you were on furlough, or they could say if it was going to be a long mission, like a month or 2 months, well, he's TDY. And the papers would be cut. I have a daughter who retired from the military, and part of her function was select people for leadership positions, and also she selected a list of people who were going overseas. And one day she decided, I'm going to find out what my father did, and she couldn't find it. The computer kept going bam, bam, bam. And her officer came up to her. He said, what in the heck are you doing? She said, I want to find out what my dad did. He said, do you see that computer? He said, you got both of us in trouble. So I have been tempted to write a book, but nobody would believe it. Because the people who know about it, most of them are gone, and the people who really know about it don't want this stuff exposed even now. But I can say this, there are a lot of things that are happening in the Middle East that I know the roots of when it began. Like most Americans, they're talking about this young man in Iran, or Khomeini. The Ayatollah Khomeini? No, that didn't start there. It started in 1950, 51, when we got rid of the Premier Mossadegh. So we know what happened because we were people who did those kind of missions. I'm not saying I did it now, but I'm saying we do know who did it, and we also know who put the Shah back on the throne. So a lot of our troubles in the Middle East came from things we did 50 years ago. And the unit that I was in did things like that.
That sort of clandestine unit.
Yes, we did things like that.
Now, the unit that you were assigned to, which was an infantry unit, was it a combat? Were they in combat?
Oh, they were in combat. They were in combat. They were in combat.
Were you involved in any of the activities that they were involved in?
We were never involved in any of those activities.
How much did you know about or get a sense of the sort of normal war that was taking place?
Oh, you were definitely aware of what was going on. And I can't say you didn't take part because you're over there and sometimes you had to take part in it. But for us, the full impact of what happened to the other soldiers, no, we were always protected. You know, we were never sent out on any of those kind of
missions. Or engaged in any of the
no,
firefighting.
No, we were never. Now, if you wanted to, you could volunteer for it. But no, we didn't do that.
And where were you assigned? How close to the actual combat that was taking place?
Well, we were assigned to Seoul.
So was where the unit was?
Where the unit was, but you know, you gotta say everybody in infantry does not fight. You know, and we were assigned to what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say. I guess supply would be, or supply would be about the best word. We were always headquarters in that sort of capacity. You know.
What sense did you have? Because you, first of all, you were quite young.
Yes.
And yet there was really heavy fighting that was taking place with lots of casualties and almost trench warfare sometimes. Did you have any sense of that?
Oh, we definitely had a sense of that. Let me say again, during the Korean War, this unit did a lot of I don't want to use the word assassination, that's too, but let's say during the Korean War, this unit was instrumental in terminating a lot of the top leadership of the opposing army. And that was basically what the function of it, what it was.
From time to time, I used to hear a great deal about sort of secret missions, and small units are going out, and I don't know to what extent some of these things are true. They were talking about the sort of piano wires kind of things that you used. And,
yes, I remember so.
So that was all a part of.
That was a part of what we did.
A part of what you did.
Yes,
okay.
because if any of us ever gotten captured, the United States government would not acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the. It was just what it was. Also, you did not take prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, you didn't have time. What were you going to do with them? Mm-hmm. And secondly, if you got shot, nobody was to try to stop bringing you home. Mm-hmm. Because you had to get in and you had to get out. And you had only a certain amount of time to get in there. Everything was bam, bam, bam. Of course you wouldn't leave anybody behind. Mm-hmm. But this is what you were trained to do. That was something we never did. You know.
Let me switch feet just a little bit. The Korean conflict was sort of the first one in which the military was, in quotes, integrated. Harry Truman had signed the order back in the late 1940s. How did that play any part, or did it play any part at all as far as you were aware of?
Well, let me say this. On paper, the Army was integrated. I think our unit, because it was special, and we were chosen because of our intelligence and our military aptitude, we were integrated. The rest of the Army was not integrated. Mm-hmm. The rest of the Army did not get integrated until April, I think, of 1951, when General Matthew Ridgway replaced General MacArthur. Mm-hmm. And that was the real integration of the Korean forces.
So when you were in the reserves and all of that, you were not in an integrated
unit?
Oh
yeah, when I was in the reserves, there was no. Mm-hmm. We never even thought about it. Mm-hmm. And if I had not been picked, I would have been in the 24th and an all-black outfit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a given. Mm-hmm. But I was just picked by a colonel who said I was smarter than he was, and he wanted to see who I was.
And so that
was it.
And did you essentially continue to do this for the entire period? Because essentially you were in the military for about 5 years, if I understand it correctly.
When I came back to the States, I did some training, and then I was sent to Alaska. At that time, we were not fighting the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. But the outfit that I was in was all regular Army, mm-hmm. for a reason, because up along the border between Russia and the United States, we were having shooting battles. Mm-hmm. And you had to have regular Army soldiers there because draftees would write home to their congressmen. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't get drafted to fight the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. So for a period, I would say, until I left Alaska, we had skirmishes along that border with the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. So basically, we did the same kind of thing. Now, some of the people, especially people who had Russian background, did slip over into the Soviet Union, mm-hmm. because they had Russian background. And again, that was a very hush-hush thing. Nobody knew what was going on but this particular unit. And we were separated from the people down in Anchorage at Fort Sheridan, which was a main Army base. We would come in there for leave maybe, but we were never part of the units there. What they did is have our name listed on the roster, mm-hmm. but we were never part of any unit. You're just on the company roster. Well, nobody knows who's on the roster except the master sergeant, who knows who's there in a big unit. So that way we were always accounted for.
So essentially, for all of your military
It was
duty,
clandestine. It was
yeah,
clandestine. It was clandestine. It was clandestine.
how familiar, how aware were you of, because you were quite young,
I was very young.
of all of the ramifications of the Cold War, if you will?
Well, I like to think I was very much aware because I was always a reader. And my dad was a reader. And I grew up among people who were out and out communists. And who, so the part of the, or how I grew up in, it was always political ferment. So I was always aware there was different philosophies. And then fortunately, in the unit that I was in, we had people from all over the world. So I can't say, hey, I was instantly knowing, but I would say by 1952, I knew what was going on because I had people who from Europe and people who had left the Soviet Union, people who had served in SSS, and they would school us. And so I was very much aware about it. By the time I was 19, I can say I was pretty much aware.
Of the fact that all of this, in one sense, grew out of the end of the Second World War and
Yes.
the division between Russia and the U.S. as far as Korea was concerned, and how China played in.
Yes.
You had pretty good understanding.
Because I had people who were much more older than I was, and who knew what was going on. And these people, you know, soldiers just like people in prison. You have nothing to do, but if you're not fighting, you got time to talk. And these people would, and if you're wise, you're going to listen to them. And these people would talk about things that happened. And there was one gentleman in particular. We all called him Mr. Fitz. You know, I can't tell you how old he was because when he's 17, you think a guy's old, he might be 27. But he had been around the world, and he could talk, and he told us about things, what the ramifications were. We knew as far as 1954 that France was going to lose Vietnam, Indochina. We also knew the United States better not go in there.
Even though they were sending in
even though advisors at the time, but in 1954. January 1954, my unit was put under an alert because we were supposed to go into Vietnam. And the man who kept us from going, again, was General Ridgway because he was chief of staff. And he told President Eisenhower, if you give the order, I will resign and go on television and tell the American people why. And that was from the military part. From the civilian part, Lyndon Johnson, who was Senate Majority Leader, told the president, no, we're not going to approve it. 10 years later, what does he do as president? But we were scheduled to go to Vietnam in May of '54. The French fell in June of '54. So it was nip and tuck. But so, yes, we were aware because we were a different unit. Now we wouldn't be exceptional. Because you got people in the Special Forces, in the Delta Group. These guys are far more intelligent than we were, and they're better skilled than we were. So it's a political fight, and but we were the first. I would venture to say we were the first political fighters after the Second World War.
What kind of training did you have that prepared you for this kind of work? What kind of training did the military provide you with once they tapped you?
I could take this and kill you right now.
So you went through some training?
This type of training. I wrote this paper. I could kill you with this. Hit you right in the roof of your mouth. That type of training. Specialized training on how to kill people, not how to save people.
And how long did this training take?
Oh, it's been so long, John. I could say 2 months, or I could say always. You were always getting training, never out of training, never out of training.
Was there anything that you learned or did while you were in the military that carried over and prepared you then for civilian life?
Everything. Everything. Not to take life for granted, to treasure friendships. That's probably the most important thing, treasure friendships. There are people that I love closer than I love my wife because I shared things with those people. And my life was in their hands. You also learn discipline. And you learn to take adversity in stride. I guess whatever I am, if I ever accomplish anything, it's from being in the military. And the other thing you learn that is carried over is love of country, not love of party. That's the most important thing. Love of country. Not love of presidents, not love of senators, not love of party. I keep emphasizing that. The people I meet with every Friday, Second War veterans, Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, we all have that brotherhood, love of country. And I think that's probably the most important thing that...
So you meet with a group of...
every Friday.
And what is required to be a member of the group?
Well, it's not so much a requirement, just a group of veterans who got together.
So all veterans?
All veterans. Not all of veterans, because we have people who are not veterans. We have a gentleman who works for the Defense Department, but he brings something to the table that we don't have. We have a gentleman that I've been trying to get to come here and talk because he's got a wealth of experience from the Vietnam War, CIA man, State Department, a man who knows everybody in Afghanistan and in Pakistan because he trained them when they were young Army officers. So we got people from all different, but people who are interested in this country.
So the one thing that you have in common that bonds you, you would say, is the love of country.
Yes. That's,
and it cuts across a fairly wide age bracket.
Age bracket. We have one guy who could probably buy 100 people. Okay, you wouldn't know it if you saw him, but he probably could. It cuts across everything. Regions, you know. And we've all have had, we can all relate to each other. I think it's become a major part of my life now. Big part of my life.
When you served, you had both persons who had been drafted and you had persons who were
enlisted.
Now we have an all-volunteer.
They have an all-volunteer army now.
Do you sense any difference between?
Yeah, worst thing that ever happened in this country.
Why?
When I was in the Army, I met guys I would have never met. I met guys from the South, black and white. I met black guys from the South who didn't understand me, and I sure didn't understand them. And I met white guys from the South who looked at me like I was from the moon, because by God, you finished high school. And that kind of reaction. I also met white guys from the South who told me that they were taught to treat black men and women with respect and dignity. And I thought all white Southerners were racist. And I met guys from the West who were not cowboys. I met millionaires, sons of millionaires, sons of senators. And we all were in the Army together. Today, You got, beginning with the Vietnam War, you had a war that was fought by two classes of people, poor whites and blacks from the South, who always enlisted in the Army because that was their way out of the South. And you had urban blacks and whites who came out of those ghettos. You know, ghettos in the North were not always black. Irish ghettos in New York, Hell's Kitchen, or Lower East Side. So you had all those kids who went into the Army as a way of getting out. I'll give you, for example, James Gavin, come out of Hell's Kitchen and went into the Army as a private, couldn't hardly read or write, became a general. So you had all those kind of people. Now, you just got people who, to me, and I don't want to denigrate them, but they're making more money than the generals made. I'm talking about privates. And they're good fighters, obviously they're good fighters, but the emphasis of the Army today is we're going to pay you a salary. And that wasn't the case when we went in. And that wasn't the case when people got drafted. Because you weren't even thinking about the money. And the guys who got drafted, they might have hated going in, but it was their country. And to me, this Army is becoming a professional Army in the sense of a mercenary Army. And I think, and most of the people I meet with on Fridays feel, that every American kid should be drafted into the Army. This is your country. You know, Thomas Paine said we have the chance to start this country anew. And that's what he was talking about in a crisis. This country is a special country. 2 oceans, blessed by God. Only country in the world has what? A written constitution. Now just think if those people are put in that constitution, all white men are created equal, not Africans nor women. Where would this country have been? They left that to the future. They knew it was imperfect, but we're going to leave this to the future. And that's what the military has always done. Even at fights on Bunker Hill, there were black men, there were women, there were Indians. Everybody fought. Maybe they didn't get their rights then, but this was always in the future. And every army, every war we've been in has advanced equality in this country.
So you think the military has been sort of the lead in causing America to come closer to becoming that more perfect union?
I'm going to let you read this, John, because you have a better voice than I do. So I'll let you read that.
I may have a better voice, but I'm not sure about my eyesight.
Okay, you got better eyesight. You read that.
It is the veteran. It is the veteran, not the preacher, who has given us the freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the legislature, who has given the freedom of choice. It is the veteran, not the employer, who has given us the freedom of earning a living. It is the veteran, not the teacher, who has given us the freedom of education. It is the veteran, not the doctor, who has given us the freedom of health care. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to assemble. It is the veteran, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the veteran who salutes the flag, who serves under the flag, whose coffin is draped by the flag, anonymous. So you seem to take the position that being a veteran, having served in the military and having served your country, is really the cornerstone of America.
Very much so. Very much so. I feel that as a veteran, I'm not a hero. I'm a survivor. None of us who are veterans are heroes. We're survivors. The heroes are those men and now women who gave their lives to this country. Those are the heroes. In this country, their blood keeps this country growing.
I find that interesting, knowing a little bit about you, because you're very much a social activist in terms of working to make America a more perfect union. And you're not doing that because you're a veteran.
I'm doing it more because I'm a veteran, John. I have every September, my wife would tell the kids, don't bother your father. This is a bad time of the year for him. Every fall, I lost 3 buddies, 17, 18, 19. September, October, November. One was a Chinese black guy, and the other was a Sicilian. Father was Sicilian, mother was black. And the other guy was from Kentucky. Best athlete I ever saw in my life, if he had lived. Broken all baseball records. Handsome. Nubian black, you know how pretty that is. And his name was Joe. And we all called him naturally Old Black Joe. And all those kids got killed in Korea. So I feel I owe them something. I lost another buddy in 1969. I met his mother at a laundromat and asked, I said, well, I guess Charles is somewhere retiring. And she fell to the floor crying. She said he just got killed a month ago, a year before he's going to get out, 36 years old. And I think about those guys. And I feel it's my duty to carry on what they gave their lives to this country. They gave their lives at a time when people ridiculed this kid who was Sicilian black. Can you imagine how people ridiculed him? Or this other kid who was half Chinese? Just think, you know, and yet they fought for this country. And they all gave their lives before they were 19, 20 years old. And I asked myself, why me? Why was I picked out of the clear blue sky? Why was I picked for this? And why did I go on these assignments and still come home? And why did Charles lose his life at 37, a year before discharge? So yeah, I might have been a social activist. I probably would have come out of the part of Ohio I did, but I wouldn't have had the insight or maybe the determination to keep going. And I think a veteran has a responsibility to the people who died for this country to fight to make this country what it is. You know, I mean, I have a nephew who's down in Arlington. His name's on that wall, Vietnam Wall. I can't bring myself to go there, you know, because he was the last of his line. His line ended when he died. And I think about him a lot because he was my last nephew, last of that family. So I owe it to him. I owe it to all those other people that never came home. And this is what we owe. We're the survivors. Yeah, I might have been a social activist. I can't say I wouldn't have been. But I wouldn't have been the same guy. You know, I have 2 daughters and 2 sons who served in the military. And I guess it's because of listening to me. I told them they owe this country. They owe this country. Being a veteran, you have a duty. You have a duty. It's a sacred duty. You have a duty. I mean, let me say this. When I see veterans, sitting out on the street corner with a sign, "I'm a veteran, feed me," I really want to hit them, because they're disgracing all those people who died for this country. And they had their resources they can go to. They don't have to be out there begging. Being a veteran doesn't mean I'm entitled to something. Being a veteran means I have to give something. I have to help people. And this little group that I meet with every Friday, we take up donations. And I told you about the one guy who could buy us all. He doesn't give any more than the rest of us. And then we help people anonymously. We help charities anonymously. We have sent kids to school. We have talked to principals, say, let us know if you got a kid who needs a coat, who needs some money. He doesn't need to know who's giving it to him. This is what you have to do. These are little things, but this is what you have to do. And this is what I feel.
Okay, you talk a great deal about what the veterans, in a sense, owe to, give to society. What does society owe to its veterans? Or do you think society is
Society does owe it to its veterans. When I look at how these young men and women who are coming home today, and the way this government just dismisses them, I think of that poem that Kipling wrote about Tommy. You're familiar with that poem? Well, now I know what Kipling meant when he wrote about Tommy coming home when the war is over. First time in history of the United States of America, and we all should be ashamed. This is the first time we treated our wounded so callously and so cold. And we owe these people. Everybody, and I feel that every American at some time in his or her life should go to the nearest veterans hospital and just see how these people are. And then you'll understand that the fact that you can stand on the corner and curse your government is because of those people over there, those people who are buried at Arlington, or those people in France who are buried in France, the people who are buried in England, people in hospital, in graveyards all throughout this country. That's what society owes a veteran. It owes a veteran a good education. It owes a veteran a chance to have a decent job, a chance to enjoy his life. And this is the first time in the history of this country, even in this, beginning with the Civil War, there was always take care of the veterans. And now, and the shame of it all is, we have a man who is a veteran who voted against the GI Bill for these veterans. And I can't understand why John McCain did it. Let me say something personal. Mm-hmm. I have never, when it came to presidents, I have never voted against a veteran. Never. I would never vote against a veteran running for president. I don't care what ticket he was in. I voted for Bob Dole, and I knew Bob Dole was going to beat Bill Clinton. I told my wife, you think I'm going to vote for a draft dodger? And here's a man spent 5 years in the hospital because of Second World War wounds? No way. Never, never, ever. This will be the first time that a civilian is running against a veteran that I will vote for the civilian. And what tipped it for me was John McCain voted against the GI Bill.
Interesting.
And that has tipped it for a whole lot of veterans. John McCain hadn't voted for the GI Bill, no matter how much of an honor it would have been to vote for the first black president, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it. This would not have superseded being a veteran. But when John McCain voted against the GI Bill, no way. And there are millions of veterans feel the same way. You know?
We have a few more minutes here, I believe. Let me switch to post-military service. You got out in 1955.
I got out in 55, and still being taxed working for the government. But I got on 55 and I said, well, I didn't, I got out the same month that Emmett Till was murdered. I got out, discharged in Chicago. He was from Chicago. And I was angry. By the time I got home, I didn't even know I got home, and my mother and father had been divorced, so my mother had moved to a new home. And I didn't know where it was, a new housing development. They were building these new homes, you know how they would do. And I met a kid, and I asked him, do you know where this Breckenridge lives? He said, yeah. He said, oh, did you hear about that kid getting lynched in Mississippi? I said, what? I said, no, and he told me about it. And I had my duffel bag, and I said, here, take it. He said, can I said, take it? I said, just take it. You know, that's how angry I was before I even met my mother. So when I got in the house, she was talking. I asked her, she said, yeah. And I said, oh, my God. I fought for this damn country. And I was full of hatred and bitterness. So I went in and I said, I have to take a shower. While I was taking a shower, I heard somebody crying. I didn't steal anything. So my mother said, well, he's in the shower. I come out of the shower, and there was this young boy. I didn't even know who he was. And his father had beaten him because he thought he stole a duffel bag. And I told him, no, he didn't steal it. I said, wait a minute. I went back, got the underwear, T-shirt, socks and shoes I had on, put it in the bag. I told the father, you got to wash them. I just took them. I said, I don't want anything got the United States government on it. That's how angry I was. My first thought was then, I should go out and kill every white boy I saw. I was so full of hatred. I stayed that way for 2 months. I didn't go outside, party. And then naturally, and I met with other veterans, but that's what we thought. We should form a unit, just go out and kill. But we couldn't do that. We were soldiers. So that bitterness passed. And that's when I decided, along with others, we're going to work to change this government the right way. And so we got involved then. 55, I immediately got involved in things around Cleveland, Youngstown, Warren, where there was discrimination. Because there's a lot of discrimination in Ohio. A lot of it up north, not all down southern Ohio. And we did those things. We just, without any organization, just a group of veterans. And then I went to school.
Where'd you go?
That same year, 55.
And where?
I started Youngstown College, and I didn't really like it at Youngstown because it was a city school and it just wasn't what I needed. It's a great school, but I didn't need it. I needed something differently. And so I went to Kent State, and that's where I finished up at Kent State.
Okay.
And I left Kent about a quarter before graduation to start working as a social worker because I was married by that time. And so I went to work as a social worker and later got involved politically with the Cleveland Democrat Party, Carl Stokes' branch, when Carl was running for state legislature. And I just started working around the country, meeting different people, met James Foreman and Medgar Evers. And it was Medgar Evers who really influenced me to get involved in politics. Because when I first met him at a speech he gave, and I walked up to him, I said, Medgar, I said, now I know what my grandfather meant. And he said, what do you mean? I said, my grandfather was from Georgia, by the way. And he told me there were black men in the South that nobody bothered. I asked him why. And he said, these guys called these guys crazy niggas. I said, now I know what he meant. And he started laughing. He said, I guess you're right. And I said, why in the hell are you staying in Mississippi? He said, because it's my home. And if I can fight Europe to free white people, why can't I fight Mississippi to free black people? And what are you doing in Ohio? And that's when I really made the plunge. And so it wasn't planned. It was just serendipity. You know, I left social work and just started working. I had a wife, 2 children, and I quit my job as social work because, you know, You know, you can't be a social worker. You're upsetting the status quo if you're out here throwing rocks. And for about 2 years, black people supported me. Guys who were working at steel mills, guys who were working as janitors, they'd come by the house and give me an envelope. And I traveled all over Ohio, traveled all over the country, meet at political meetings. Pullman porters would put me on, they'd get me on the train. I was supported by black people from 1957, I would say, right up to 1959. Out of the goodness of their heart. And then in 1960, I really got involved with the Democrat Party. And I was raising so much hell that they thought that if they shut me up, they gave me a job. So I became a county clerk. And still didn't shut me up. I had my foot in the door, and then I start, hey, wait a minute, why are there only one of me? In this county is 40% black. You only got 1 or 2 black people?
This was in Cuyahoga County?
No, this was in Trumble County.
Trumbull County.
Right down the road from
Okay.
Cuyahoga County.
Okay.
And I said, you only got 1 or 2 black people, and this county is 40% black? And they couldn't fire me. So I started going around recruiting black people and women, men and women, and not only just black people. There was a lot of prejudice in Northeastern Ohio against people who were not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, especially people, quote, that they called hunkies. And I went around speaking at a lot of those churches, say, hey, you know, get your kids registered, go up there and complain. So I became a catalyst for change in that part of Ohio. And 1963, people came to me and said, of course you're going to run for councilman. I said, are you crazy? I don't want that job. They said, you have to run. We need you. Black and as well as white people. And so I was elected the first black public official in Trumbull County as city council, which I served for 2 years. And I fought the machine so hard that they not only defeated me the next time around, they blew up my apartment with my baby daughter, my youngest daughter. At that time, she was 2 months old, and they blew up my apartment. And I was saved by God. No, I usually when I come home in the morning, I would hang my clothes up, take a shower. I never took my clothes into the shower with me. And this morning, I took my clothes into the shower. While I was in the shower, I heard a voice say, get out. I was like, get out right now. I got out, didn't even put my clothes on, and went out the door to the bed of the bathroom, like wham, I smoke everywhere. And I told my 3 older daughters, fortunately we were on the 1st floor, to go out their bedroom window. I rushed in the bedroom and got my baby out of the bassinet, and I tried to call the fire department. The phone melted in my hand, and I just ran out of the house. And that apartment went up like, shoo. Later on, a woman who had an apartment across the street from me, she said, you know, there's been a salt and pepper team watching you for a week. By salt and pepper, she meant a black guy and a white guy. I said, what do you mean? She said, they've been sitting out that parking lot watching you for a week when you come in. I said, and you never told me? She said, it wasn't my business. I said, why tell me now? And I quit speaking to her. That's been 40-something years ago. I just cut her off. I was saved by God. I had been warned by a gentleman who was very close to me. And he was a connected man. By connected, I mean he was involved with the Cleveland mob. And he told me, I'm going to protect you as much as I can. He said, but I may not be able to protect you. And I said, well, he said, why are you doing what you're doing? I said, the people elected me to fight for them. So if I have to step over people, I have to do it. I said, I have to do what Frederick Douglass says, you get nothing without a struggle.
So your belief is that this was mob connected?
It was mob connected. It was mob connected because I was fighting. I was fighting some of the business that the mob was involved in it, not only in Trumbull County but throughout the succeeding counties. Let me say this. If I had wanted to become a multimillionaire at the age of 30, I could have been one. I walk down the street sometimes and I see some business that I know is mob connected because it started in Trumbull County and I was fighting it. I'm not going to say I didn't think about taking the money. All right? Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't think about taking that money. Okay? But I had a grandfather who was born 1867. Born to Zulu parents. And he always insisted, I am a Zulu and you are a Zulu. And he always insisted that honor comes before anything. And if I had taken that money, I would have spit on that grandfather of mine. I was tempted. God knows I was tempted. Oh my Lord, you know. And the guys told me, you'll be a multimillionaire. I'm 30 years old, living on $5,000 a year. But no, I didn't take it, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I don't regret it. God saved me in Korea, saved me in those missions. He saved me then. And like I say, after this is over, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I won't say it on the camera. Yeah, it was mob connected. I'm proud I stood up to him.
Well, is there anything that we've left uncovered?
Well, let me say this. I think it's, you know, I am a very religious man. Very religious. I'm not the guy who wears it on his shoulders. You know, I don't wear patriotism on my shoulders. You know, I wouldn't wear a flag pin if my life depended on it. And I think that people should really look at Barack Obama. Everybody's talking about when he gets a nomination, it'll be the anniversary of Martin Luther King. No, not to me, that's not what's important. It's a man from Chicago. Emmett Till was from Chicago, and he was murdered. It would be 53 years since Emmett Till was assassinated, was lynched, not assassinated, lynched. It'll be 45 years since Medgar Evers was lynched, was murdered. Mac Parker, a veteran, was murdered, was lynched in Mississippi in 1966. And now you have an African man, a man whose father was born in Kenya, and his mother comes from the plains of bloody Kansas. And he's about to be nominated for President of the United States. And think about that. That's what's important to me, not that speech in 63. I'm thinking about all these people, and I think about Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, think about the people who fought on Bunker Hill, black men and women. I think about Christmas Actos, and I think about all our foreparents, the ones who jumped over those ships in chains on that long voyage. And I think they didn't do it in vain. They didn't do it in vain. This is a precious country. And I go back to that Constitution, those imperfect men who listened to Thomas Paine, who said, we have the chance to start this country anew. For the first time in my 76 years, I am proud to be a citizen of this country. He doesn't have to get to be president. He's already won. Nobody, my three buddies, they didn't die in vain. That's what I want to leave you with.
Mr. Breckenridge, I thank you on behalf of myself and the Public Library of Cincinnati, Ohio, and Hamilton County.
And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.